everyone, I'm Chester44 and welcome to this Let's Play of Tyranny. Last episode, we happened to stumble into this random room where we found Sirin, the Archon of Song, apparently, who did not act quite how I expected, and willingly joined us. Seemed like it came out of almost nowhere. Either way, while we have her on our side, I think perhaps we should speak with her and maybe learn a bit about what the hell's going on here.
Good day, Fatebinder. What do you need?
Let's see. Need loyalty too for that, but let's see. I would know more about you.
What do you want to know?
Tell me about your homeland.
What is there to say? It's a fuzzy memory hardly worth recalling. I was born in a northern farming village without a name. That's how out of the way we were. A bunch of families ended up settling near each other, and that was my village. It was about 20 miles from Shadow's Rest, and you probably haven't heard of that either. We were farmers, poor and isolated. Nothing about my home or past is worth dwelling on, Fatebinder. I barely remember my father, my mother is dead, and the only thing people ever wanted from me was my song. The girl is powerful. Bring the Songbird. We need a blessing. Our crops are withering. What has that bitch done?
Her voice falters with that last statement, and she shivers a little. Nothing in your past is worth dwelling on? Looks to me like you remember something.
I suppose when an angry mob that fears you and what you can do stones your mother to death while she shields you with her body, it sticks with you.
Oof. What do you remember about your family?
The good thing about being taken from home when you're still a child is you can't miss the childhood you never got. What do you want to know?
How were you taken from your family?
Technically, by the time I was taken, there was no family left to be taken from, but Kyrus' forces had gotten word of my talents and decided I was better used taking over the world than helping local farmers.
You have no family left? What happened?
What do you think? They're dead. My father might not have cared about me, about us, but my mother would never have let anyone take me while she lived. Without anyone to protect me, I was whisked off to Kyrus' court.
How would you describe your father?
Worthless, hopeless, devoid of human emotion. Sometimes I feel like we were complete opposites. He seemed incapable of feeling anything, and I seemed to be nothing but raw emotion. Narat let it slip that my father sold me to Kyrus and was responsible for my mother's death. Someone had to egg the crowd on, and someone had to tell Kyrus' men where I was. Not that it matters, he's dead and I'm better off without him.
What do you remember about your mother?
She's dead, so I don't have much to remember. She loved me, that much I know, but sometimes I wonder if what she felt was love or fear. Fear for me or of me. And sometimes I don't think there was a difference between the two. My mother loved me when no one else did, when no one else could. The world wanted nothing but my voice. All my mother wanted was my happiness. She was the only person in my life that did.
Tell me about your mother's death.
No, Fatebinder, I can't. Please, don't make me talk about it.
Okay, Sirin. I will never ask you to tell me that story.
Thank you. There are some things that are just too painful to remember.
Tell me about your father's death.
He disappeared after my mother died and I was kidnapped. I didn't hear anything from him for the longest time, so I assumed he had disappeared and I would never see him again. Then someone brought word that he'd been found. He killed himself, and now he's out of my life.
For someone who always has a lot to say, that was incredibly succinct. Is there more?
You're relentless, Fatebinder. Did you ever think that maybe there are some things I want to keep to myself? But yes, you're right. There's more to the story. When I got word he'd been found, I had him summoned to Kyrus' court. I wanted to see the man who had condemned me to the life I was leading. When he arrived, I went to see him privately. I wasn't sure what I would feel. Anger? Hatred? I didn't expect apathy. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. Standing there, staring at the man who ruined my life, waiting for him to notice me, my heart was dull and disinterested. Then he looked up and smiled. He smiled when he saw me. Can you believe that? He smiled and opened his arms to hug me, and it felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed my heart, sending hate flooding through my veins. So I sang him a song. I told him how tired he looked, how haggard he seemed. I spoke of the weariness he must feel, the guilt that surely plagued him every day. I asked how he withstood the weight of his betrayal. The burden must be too much to bear. I watched the tears roll down his cheeks as he pulled the dagger from his belt, the sobs that tore from him as he held it before him, thinking about his wife and child, the look of ecstatic relief on his face as he dragged the blade across his neck. What did he do, though? You made him kill himself? That's horrible. We've all done things we regret, Fatebinder, but this is not one of them. My father was a terrible man who finally heard the song that should have killed him 5 years earlier. Now you know what happened to my father. As I told you before, he killed himself. And that's it. Do you have any siblings? No. I was close to a boy in my village for a time, but his mother stopped letting me play with him when everyone realized what my powers were. That's the closest thing I ever had to a living sibling.
A dour expression clouds your face. A living sibling?
My brother died very young. I never knew him, so I hardly count him as a sibling. Life in the middle of nowhere is difficult. For a single child to survive, let alone more, is a testament to the parents.
She looks at you for a time, her lips a thin line. Her eyes grow red and tears form in her lids. Finally, she nods slowly and breaks her silence.
I remember my mother talking about me getting a little brother. It wasn't long after I started singing and my powers started growing. She told me that soon it would be too hard for her to travel with me. Sirin, sweetie, she said, you'll have to go with your daddy. It wouldn't be good for the baby if I kept traveling like that. Maybe after your brother is out here with us, we can all travel together.
Sirin looks out to the horizon, her voice breaking. You didn't like traveling with your father?
No, all he wanted was the money. When we were on the road, he completely ignored me. I was simply something to earn rings with, a tool. The farmers in my village used their rakes and wagons, my father used my voice. Everyone wanted the Songbird to sing for them, and they paid us so much money. So we went. But I didn't want to go without my mother. She was the only real comfort I had. When I was with her, I felt safe. Nothing could hurt me. There was a trip coming up, and I knew she wouldn't be going. I couldn't bear the thought of all those days in the care of my father.
Her voice breaks again and she closes her eyes.
So I sang to my baby brother. I told him we were all waiting for him. I told him we needed to be a family so we could travel together. I told him he should come out now. I don't know if I meant for it to happen, but I sang the words "No one can resist my voice." My mother's screams cut the song short, and the blood, it was everywhere. I was dragged from the room, but I don't remember who took me. I only remember staring at my foot the rest of the afternoon. The pattern soaked into my shoe, the splatter across the tops of my toes. I couldn't bring myself to clean it off. I just looked at it.
Dear God. How long had your mother been pregnant?
Not long enough for my brother to survive. Maybe he could have. I don't know. The problem is, when I told him he had to come out, I didn't mean I wanted him out alive. I don't think he would have survived even if it was time for my mother to give birth. People came and went all day. There was a lot of crying, and nobody looked at me the same way after that. My mother told me that things like this happen all the time, but even at 5 I knew what I had done. And part of me was happy. I wanted my mother back and I got her. She still loved me, she died protecting me, but I terrified her. Every time I opened my mouth I could see her flinch, and after my brother died she was never around when I sang. She couldn't bear to watch me. Holy fuck. So that's what the Archon of Song can do? Dear God.
How long have you been practicing magic?
Always. I have no memory of being without the power. It has been my driving force, and I am who I am because of it. Every defining moment of my life is because of my voice and the power behind it. I have become what it made me, and it is what I have done with it.
Tell me about your time with the voices of Narat.
What do you want to know?
How did you meet Narat?
I met it when I was unceremoniously dumped on its doorstep by Kairos. All I felt toward it since the moment I saw it was sheer hatred. When one person tires of me, they just hand me off to another. I seem to be quite the handful. No one is truly prepared to deal with me, I suppose. Since I was its possession for 3 years, stuck doing what it wanted until you came along and started messing around with Kairos' plans. Why did Kairos give you to Narat? I made the mistake of trying my song on Kairos, and forgiveness isn't exactly in the Overlord's vocabulary. Interestingly enough, I think it almost worked. Can you imagine how differently things would have turned out if I'd had a little more practice? I was brought out at one of the many lavish gatherings thrown at the palace. Kairos loved showing me off. You know, impressing the gathered elite. So I performed. I sang, I danced, I convinced people to join in. Then, in the middle of it all, I had the brilliant idea to work one more performance into the show, something that would be the ultimate end to the evening. I added a counterpoint to my song and directed it at Kairos. In it, I mentioned that it might be in everyone's best interest if Kairos ended up impaled on a sword. I honestly didn't think it would work, but why not try, right? It went as far as Kairos unsheathing one of the Royal Guard's swords, but then everything stopped. I don't know why. It was probably me. I got too excited and lost my control. But whatever the reason, Kairos was suddenly out of my control and let out a terrible shout.
Weren't you afraid of getting caught?
Of course I was. But I've seen how the world works, especially Kairos' world. People don't live long, and when they're disposed of, it's violent and sudden. I figured I was dead anyway, so why not try to rid the world of a horrible threat?
I'm seeing a lot of typos in this game. Really? You were trying to save the world?
Fine, I was trying to save my own skin. Happy? I was 12, so forgive me if self-preservation was in the front of my mind. Oh, look, a young lady who thinks of nothing but herself. Do you want to hear this story or not?
Go on.
Everyone stared, frozen by the yell echoing back at us. Kairos quickly recovered and gave the appearance of cheering us on, but I was convinced I was about to die. Interestingly, my execution never came. I finally realized I couldn't have been punished at the party because Kairos would have to admit I had exerted my will onto the Overlord, and without a good reason to call for my death, I couldn't have been executed afterward. I was a Songbird. I did nothing but spread Kairos' will and gather the armies. Would you execute your best and most loved recruiting tool? So Kairos worked with Narat, and they gave me this helmet to bring me back in line. Then I was handed over to Narat, that monster, because it is the one thing in the world I cannot control. Present company excluded, Fatebinder.
Why can't you control him?
I've been inside its mind time after time, and I've never been able to get a handle on what's going on in there. Every time I talk to it, I feel like a different person is talking to me, and every one of them wants something different. And one in particular wants something it's never, ever going to get.
Wait a minute, what does Narat want from you that he's never going to get?
Come on, Fatebinder, you can't be that naive. I'm still a child, and I know about adult urgings, as one of my teachers so clumsily put it. Somewhere inside that chaotic mind, I saw the most depraved and disturbing desires I've had the misfortune of feeling. No matter what Narat says to you, do not trust it. That will always end badly.
Still a child? Sirin, how old are you? What has Narat had you do for him?
Now, if that isn't the question that goes right to the heart of the storm, I think you should ask me what he hasn't had me do. Or at least tried to make me do.
Okay, tell me more about that headdress.
It's the bane of my existence and something that's incredibly painful to talk about, so why not?
What does it do?
Makes me impotent. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a hurricane raging inside you? To feel the gale crashing against you to be released, but only feel a gentle summer's breeze?
I mean, I apparently know what it's like to feel a storm inside of me. Possibly also something else, but still.
Kairos and Narat made it just for me. If I attempt anything more powerful than a simple tune, it will kill me. Isn't that simply wonderful? Honestly, to be so terrified of a mere child.
Why do you have it?
I might have tried to kill Kairos once. He and Narat decided I posed too much of a threat, so they muzzled me. I was their attack dog, and they pulled out my teeth. You can hardly be surprised if the dog tries to bite you if that's all you teach him to do.
Why can't you simply take it off?
Gee, Fatebinder, I never thought of that. Here, could you unclasp it for me so I can get out of it? Because I'll die if it isn't removed the proper way, you simpleton. Do you think I'd leave it on otherwise?
If you can't take it off, then why did you try to get me to remove it when we met?
How can someone so powerful be so stupid? I knew you wouldn't be able to remove it. That's not what I was trying to do. You're a Fatebinder. You honestly think I was going to pass up the opportunity to try and control a Fatebinder?
Wow, okay, gee, thanks. I'll keep that in mind. How do you know you'll die if you remove the helmet?
Because I doubt Narat and Kairos will go through all the trouble just to play a trick on me. Something this subtle, elaborate, and long-lasting isn't really their style. At least not Narat's.
Really? You'd think Narat, master of spies, would be subtle. Then again, considering how insane he is.
Plus, Narat told me the helmet would kill me if I removed it, and while it might be a lying monster, it loves telling the truth if the truth causes an extra bit of pain.
You believe Narat. Maybe he's just toying it with you. Have you tried removing it?
I'm not going to risk my continued existence on a maybe. Plus, I already tried, when they first put it on me. Got one of the worst headaches I've ever had, so I'll leave it where it is for now.
What would it take to remove it?
Someone beating the information out of Narat or Kairos. They're the only ones who know how it was constructed and how it works. I may ask people to remove it, but I know they won't be able to. It's not going to stop me from trying, though.
Why the headdress? Why not use magic to gag you?
They tried magic. It didn't really work. The problem is, spells can be broken. Counterspells can be found, guards can be bribed, people can have accidents. Narat and Kairos are the only ones who know how to remove this without killing me. The answer is locked somewhere in Narat's insane, and Kairos is currently not conveniently located heads.
Alright, let's talk about something else.
What do you need?
We can learn quite a bit more. This is going to be quite a long conversation.
Do you know anything about what's going on in the tiers? I know a great deal about what's going on here, considering I am the root cause of at least half of it. What do you want to know?
How long have you been here?
Since the beginning of the occupation. Kairos wanted me out of sight, but still in use, so I was given to Narat. It used me to gather fodder for the chorus.
What do you think about Tunon?
He makes me uncomfortable. There's nothing behind that mask. It's dark and empty.
What do you mean?
Everyone has a presence. It's how my magic works. I reach into them and convince their presence to do what I want. He has no presence. When I reached into him, there was nothing. It was bleak. I never want to feel that again.
If you have to reach into someone's mind to control them, how did you influence entire armies to do what you want?
I can't influence an army, but I can persuade them to feel the way I want them to. If I want to get someone to do a specific thing for me, I have to get inside their head, and that requires a lot more effort. No one can keep me out, but if they're aware of what I'm doing, I can't force them to do anything. At least not with this thing on my head. Really, I don't know how it works, it just does. You might as well ask me where lightning comes from.
I mean, I kinda know, but I want to know about Kairos. You've met him.
What do you want to know?
How did you come to work for Kairos?
After my father betrayed me and got my mother killed, I was taken by Kairos' men. I honestly don't know where we went, other than it seemed to take forever to get there. Then I was put in school. It was a wonderful and horrible time. I learned how to control and maximize my power, but they underestimated my abilities or overestimated theirs. I think it was more the latter than the former. They unleashed my true power. Did they believe that I wouldn't try to run with it? They tried to train and mold me, and in that they succeeded. They also tried to brainwash and break me, and in that they failed spectacularly, but I was punished for it.
Why were you punished?
They assumed my abilities were exaggerated. They were powerful mages who had spent years training at their art. How could a little girl ever hope to rival their prowess? I grew tired of their condescension. I hated them for treating me like a child. Their rules, their discipline, their training. They had killed my mother, and I would make them pay for it. One day I got bored in class. The teacher's droning voice was putting me to sleep in the afternoon heat, so I thought I'd have a little fun. He was distracted, and he let his defenses down. He didn't consider me a threat.
How do you know his defenses were down?
I can just feel it. If someone is alert or aware of what's going on, it's a lot harder to get inside. But I know when they're vulnerable. I know how to take advantage of the opening and climb right in.
Go on.
I started humming, nothing that would attract his attention, of course. A lullaby my mother sang to me. Fitting, I thought, to invade this man's mind with a song taught to me by the woman they destroyed. I could tell I had gotten inside him when he slowed down, ever so slightly. I started singing wordlessly, standing, working in hand motions. They were completely unnecessary, but I had been trained to be a performer. Then I worked in my words. "The window," I sang to him. "Look, what's at the window?" He turned entranced and stared outside, his mouth moving silently as he dreamed an answer to my question. "What's out there?" I asked him through my song. "What could that be?" I was elated. The fool had left himself alone and vulnerable, and this 8-year-old had dominated his mind. He walked to the window, intently staring at something I couldn't see.
You made him jump, didn't you?
Of course, I didn't mean for him to fall. He was looking out the window and reached up as if to touch whatever he was looking at, and before I could stop him, he was gone. Looked like he was trying to catch something as he fell from sight. I won't say I'm sorry he died. He was a horrible man, but I didn't mean to do it. However, I was elated. The taste of power was intoxicating. I didn't get to taste it again for a long time.
How were you punished?
They wanted to cut out my tongue. Even at 8, I didn't blame them. It's what I would have done. But Kyra said no, doing possibly the one kind act she ever did for me. Without the power of speech, I was essentially useless. So they muzzled me. They knew simply holding my mouth shut wasn't going to be sufficient, so they got creative. Using sage magic, they put my voice in stasis when I wasn't in class. I could go through the motions of speech, but nothing came out. Oh, did they take pleasure in it. Between classes, they gave me chores. They berated me. They beat me. I was their slave. The only reason I lived was by Kyrus's whim, but I was tortured by everyone else's. There were at least 2 teachers in my classes after the incident, and I was always accompanied by 2 guards, both of whom had been deafened so I couldn't affect them. I accidentally killed one man, and they were acting like I destroyed a realm. I suppose that's what they thought I'd do next, and who knows, maybe that's what I'm about to do.
What was life like with Kairos?
For several years I was surrounded by people who would smile to my face and sneer when I turned away. They were supposed to be my mentors, my teachers, but all they did was resent me. They taught me to refine and control my voice. My power became more directed, more powerful, more subtle. I no longer needed to specifically say what I wanted people to do. I could just think what I wanted, how I felt, and the weaker the mind, the faster they would respond. It still required me to sing, or at the very least make music with my voice, but I could say one thing but mean something else entirely, and the magic worked. Everything was done for Kyrus's edification. They asked for signs of her power, and I was used to bring them about. People praised my name to the extent that was allowed, but if the focus of adoration ever truly pointed toward me, it was quickly stifled. I didn't see much of Kairos. She was busy taking care of her affairs, but I was never allowed to forget by whose power I was allowed to exist. I was paraded around like the new jewel, and since I had real power, it took a while for the luster to fade. But when I tarnished, I corroded through, and when I stopped being a pleasant distraction, I was passed off to Narat to be forgotten.
How long did you work for Kairos?
5 years. 2 years of dedicated training, 2 years of training interspersed with travel, performing miracles in Kairos' name, then a year of being his pet.
Wait a minute, you called Kairos both him and her?
Did I? How clumsy of me. Must have been a slip of the tongue.
She smiles mischievously. Is Kairos a man or a woman?
You really don't know, do you? That's fascinating. I assumed the Fatebinder would have been given an audience with him. Doesn't seem like she'd let you perform actions in his name without speaking to you. That's part of the mystique, isn't it? If your armies don't know anything about you, how can they properly plan? So why would Kairos let anything out that he didn't want the world to know?
Tell me, Sirin.
No. A lady has to keep some secrets, and this is going to be mine. It feels good to have some power in this relationship. It's not going to matter once you defeat him anyway. She'll be gone.
You know, I'll be honest. I'm starting to wonder if Kairos isn't an individual, but an idea. That Kairos isn't an individual person, a single dictator or leader who has been in charge of everything for hundreds of years, but instead has been one person after another, taking up the mantle of Kairos year after year when the past one dies. And that would be why Kairos continues in the way he is. The conquering happens under more violent, more conquerable leaders, while the times of peace happen during leaders who have conquered what they've done, or when a new leader takes over. But because Kairos is an idea instead of an individual, this idea manages to infect each person, thus keeping his strength. Maybe he's like a version of the voices of Narat, except more stable. Past individuals who are passing down from person to person. This may be overly complex, but if this is what it is, I'm fucking calling it. What do you think of Kairos?
Honestly, I didn't really think of him at all at first. If I wasn't getting daily reminders that he owned me and could have killed me any time he wanted, I would have completely forgotten he existed. Don't misunderstand me. I despise him. It's because of him I don't have a family. It's because of him my mother is dead. It's because of him I am here instead of anywhere else. But as a child I was kept too busy to interact with him much.
Alright.
What do you need?
Much more. You know what? We still have a lot more to talk about. What the hell? We'll finish with this section. What can you tell me about the Scarlet Chorus?
If I never talk to another chorus member my entire life, I will consider it a success, no matter what else happens.
She folds her arms across her chest and levels a steely gaze at you.
Then I am thrilled to turn your attempted success into a constant failure. I'll try to talk to you more often. Oh, Verse, anything that helps numb me to the droning sound of your voice. Now do you mind? I'm speaking with the Fatebinder. What do you want to know?
You weren't a member of the chorus?
What? Absolutely not! The only reason I worked with them is because I was being forced to. Once Kairos had this monstrosity placed on my head, I really had no choice. I'm not powerful enough to force them to let me go, and they had the numbers to overwhelm me if I tried anything. So I did what I was told. Until you showed up.
What was it like working with them?
Well, at first I was treated like a queen. I spent all my time recruiting, and let's be honest, the Scarlet Chorus isn't choosy, so it was easy to convince people to join. Toward the end, I actually started fearing for my life. With this thing on my head, I couldn't effectively control an entire army, so hobbling me was quite an intelligent thing for Kairos to do. If anyone had realized I couldn't hold all of them back, I would have been in big trouble. Your little stunt at Ventrian's Well couldn't have come at a better time.
What do you think of them?
I'd have thought my look of disgust kind of answered that question, Fatebinder. They're a worthless, hopeless, disorganized bunch of savages who soon will tear themselves apart from the inside.
What's your opinion on their methods?
They randomly grab anyone and anything they can get their hands on and hope they'll work if they beat them enough. Sounds like the makings of a fantastic army to me. I am repulsed by them and everything they do. Narat is a disgusting excuse for a leader, and I look forward to the day I can watch the life drain from its insane eyes. Am I being clear enough for you, Fatebinder?
Okay. What do you know about the Disfavored?
I really don't know much about them, Fatebinder. I never got a chance to work with them, so I don't think I'll be much help on this topic.
What do you think of Graven Ash?
He seems capable enough. He's organized and truly seems to care about his men, contrary to practically everyone else I've met here.
Have you seen them in action?
Briefly, at a few of the battles during Kyrus's conquest, but Narat liked to keep me locked up tight, so I never got a good look at them fighting.
You never worked with them?
Not directly. I have been used to inspire people occasionally, and the disfavored were in those groups, but if you're looking for anything of merit from me on the disfavored, I'm not going to be of much use to you.
What about the other groups in the tiers?
Who do you want my opinion on?
Tell me about the Stonestalker tribe.
Not even worthy of my attention. A beast is a beast, and you can't ever make an animal be anything more than what it is.
What about the local rebel groups? Vendrian Guard.
Are they even still pertinent? After the events of Vendrian's Well, I would have thought no one would want to talk to them anymore.
How about the Unbroken?
I haven't had much exposure to them. Ash was intent on dealing with that problem, so they didn't ask for my help.
And the Bronze Brotherhood?
They're not the most helpful people, but they seem like they want what's best for Lethian's Crossing. Plus, it was a lot easier for me to recruit my own followers with them around. I didn't have to worry about anyone being taken by the Scarlet Chorus or killed by the disfavored.
Alright, any of the mage guilds?
Generally, I don't like throwing in with other mages. I've not had a good experience with them in the past, so I keep my distance. And they're so demanding! You ask them, very nicely I might add, how to cast a spell, and they insist they're not a charity and they're not going to hand over their secrets out of the goodness of their heart. Right, like there was anything good about that one. And I didn't even use my magic on him. That's gratitude for you.
She trails off and gives you an intent look. Suddenly your head feels like it's too small for your brain. She closes her eyes and takes a breath, and the feeling dissipates.
What do you want to talk about?
Tell me about the sages.
I can't say I'm too happy with them, since it was their magic that bound my voice when I was a child, but they are an influential group with infinite knowledge. At least they were. Can you imagine how powerful you could become if you had access to their collections?
How about the Earthshakers?
Incredibly powerful, but strangely focused in their studies. Why would you want to pour your energy into one thing? Branch out! The magic they're missing out on is incredible.
And the Forgebound?
The group that Kairos used to make me my hobble? The less I have to think about them, the better. They might be good craftsmen, but unless they crap me a way out of this prison, I'll let you deal with them, thank you.
Okay.
What do you need?
Well, I'm going to pause and save here because this episode has gone on about long enough, but we still have more to talk with her about. And then I'm probably going to go back and change things. Because I did find out, one of the achievements I got was recruit every companion. So we have every companion. So I kind of want to pick and choose the groups I want. Anyway, next episode, more speaking with Sirin, Archon of Song. But that'll be in the next episode. So until then, I am Chester44. That is Jason Pendragon, Barak, Verse, and Sirin. Excuse me. This has been a Let's Play of Tyranny. And I shall see you all next time.